I like
Okay, I'm
it.
going to go ahead and call this appellate court, into session at this time. What we are hearing here today is an appeal of a criminal charge for Mr. Shaw. Representative for Mr. Shaw is Mr. Braun. The representative for the people is Miss West. Now I'll go over the statement of claim. My client, Mr. Shaw, wishes to be heard in the court in appeal of a single charge of reckless driving. He was convicted on 6/10/2019 at the time of his arrest. Due process was not available to Mr. Shaw, and he seeks to contest the conviction in court before a judge. Relief, removal of the one charge of reckless driving, which is a felony, from the record of Mr. Shaw, and a reversal of the fines that were related to the conviction of reckless driving. The evidence we have listed right now is the incident report, arrest of Kevin Shaw, and we have a single phone record of a call made. So, Miss West, are you prepared to give your opening?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Braun, are you prepared to give your opening?
Yes, Your Honor.
Miss West, you may proceed with your opening.
Yep. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the court, today I will prove that Mr. Shaw drove carelessly and without abandon through the city, 113 miles per hour through several intersections, not stopping at all to check if it was safe. He will claim that he was observant and making sure that no one was struck by his vehicle. If he was so observant, how did he fail to notice the emergency vehicle sitting at the intersection? And if he was so observant, how did he fail to notice the same emergency vehicle attempting to pull him over for over 2 blocks? My opposing counsel will no doubt paint a picture in which a corrupt and negligent officer is going after my client for what reason exactly? I could not tell you a reason that would make any sense, but he will paint this picture nonetheless. Do not fall for it. It is merely a distraction, a weak and pathetic ploy by besmirching the good name of Officer Reinhardt, nothing but mere smoke and mirrors from the actual fact at hand, in which Mr. Shaw was selfishly and dangerously careening through the city, and he should be punished for doing so. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss West. Mr. Braun?
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the court, Miss West presumes to know a lot about me and what I have to say about Miss Reinhardt and the matter at bar. However, I'm not going to run the police through the dirt on this one. This, to mind, is a problem with the penal code. You see, Los Santos Penal Code differs from the California Code in some key respects, which I think, if we became knowledgeable on these differences, would enable us to make some improvements to ensure that these kinds of reckless driving charges do not occur again in the future. Now, I am a bit of an expert on reckless driving charges. I've been put in prison, I think, 3 times for speeding, and I am actually of the opinion that the police do not like lawyers and like throwing them in jail for speeding. However, that is not something I can prove in court today, nor is it really essential to the case whatsoever. If I can bring to your attention California Vehicle Code 23103, it states that if no other person than the reckless driver is injured, VC 23103 is a California misdemeanor, not a felony. It is a wobbler law in the state of California. Reckless driving, it can be either a misdemeanor or a felony. It is a felony if someone other than the driver is seriously injured. That is when reckless driving is meant to become a felony. Now, in this city, we have negligent driving, which in the rest of the state of California is not actually in the criminal code. I do believe negligent driving is named as such in order to better distinguish between the misdemeanor and felony aspects. But nonetheless, there is a misdemeanor and felony reckless driving, and I do believe, under the circumstances, if our code matched the rest of the California code, Mr. Shaw may have been given a misdemeanor, but the police wanted to charge him with a felony. So they took a speeding offense. My client simply was speeding and made him a felon for it and threw him in jail. And speeding in and of itself is not on its own reckless driving. Speeding is speeding. Reckless driving requires that there is a wanton disregard for the safety of others, and that is reflected in our penal code. Mr. Shaw did no such thing. He sped through an intersection, possibly two intersections, and ran a red light or two, potentially, and that's it. There was no basis to charge him with reckless driving, and there was no sustained negligence or recklessness on the part of Mr. Shaw. He went to Benny's to get some maintenance done to his vehicle. He slowed down after he passed through the intersection. He, at worst, was negligent in his behavior. And yes, he does deserve to be cited and given a misdemeanor charge. However, throwing a reputable, hardworking city attorney into prison for bragging rights, and like I said, I'm an expert on this, it's for bragging rights, is beyond reproach. It's inexcusable, and it's disrespectful, and it is highly unprofessional. The officers most likely delighted in the fact that they were throwing a lawyer in jail. They probably laughed about it afterwards, had a beer together, and oh, job well done. The fact remains that it was a simple speeding ticket that escalated to a custodial sentence for no reason backed by law.
I mean, I'm sure they allow
No
it. I don't
reason.
think my credibility would be very good, though.
Fucking read.
No reason backed by California law, and
Fucking
really no
read.
reason backed by the penal code. To my knowledge, Mr. Shaw, again at worst, is guilty according to our penal code of negligent driving. That is it. There was no instance during this occurrence where anyone was at risk, where he nearly hit somebody. There was no cross traffic. There was no pedestrian traffic. He was not in any position to recklessly harm or endanger anyone. Therefore, this charge must be dropped.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. Miss West, are you prepared to call your first witness?
I am. I would like to call Deputy Clarence Williams to the stand.
Deputy Williams, will you please approach the bench, and I will swear you in at this time. You
Yes,
need to
Your
jump as well, sir. Thank you. There's some glass there, sir.
You need the bailiff?
The bench. Is he in the bench for everybody? What?
No, he's not.
Clarence, get
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah.
He is.
All right, thank you.
He's not for me.
All right, he is now.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, okay.
Do you
Well, it
need?
doesn't
Do you
matter.
need a bailiff?
Yes, please be a bailiff. Also, the gentleman that's filming, if you need to take a better position, now is the time to do that, sir. Thank you. Detective McCormick, you can swear in the witness, please.
All right. Detective Williams, do you hold up your left hand for me, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you slasher?
Yes, I do.
The witness is sworn in, Your Honor.
Can't hear McCormick.
Thank you, bailiff. And I'll remind you at this time, sir, you're now under oath. Miss West, you may proceed with your line of questioning for this witness.
He's a dev.
Thank you. Were you involved in a traffic stop on June 10th, 2019, involving Kevin Shaw?
Yes.
Was anyone else present for this traffic stop?
Yes. Both Officer Reinhardt and Sergeant Angel.
Okay. What were the events that led up to this traffic stop?
Kevin Shaw was clocked going 113 miles an hour southbound down Power Street.
All right. Were you the driver or the passenger in the police cruiser?
I was the passenger.
Okay. From your vantage point, could you see the radar?
No, I couldn't actually see the radar from the passengers.
What happened after you received the dispatch call and flagged Mr. Shaw's vehicle?
There wasn't a dispatch call. We witnessed the vehicle go past us, at which Officer Reinhardt caught the speed and her radar went off, at which I radioed in what we had witnessed and that we were attempting to get up to the vehicle. And Officer Reinhardt pursued, and that's when we finally approached him at Benny's, and that's when Sergeant Angel arrived on scene.
When you were pursuing his vehicle, did you have lights and sirens on?
Yes.
Okay. What happened after you were able to pull him over?
We had him pulled over, and we questioned him on why he was driving at those rates of speed through the city, and eventually with what had happened, based off of myself, both recommended that reckless driving was an appropriate charge here on her own.
All right.
Okay.
Were you present when were you present when Mr. Shaw was in holding at MRPD?
Yes.
Can you tell me what happened while he was in holding?
I'm sorry, if I remember correctly, I was dealing with some things in my head, so I was kind of in and out during that situation.
Okay.
My apologies, I don't remember too much there.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. In your professional opinion, do you think the charge of reckless driving, is appropriate?
Yes.
Why do you
Dun,
think
dun,
it is
dun.
appropriate?
It was very clear that Mr. Shaw was driving at very high rates of speed, almost 3 times the speed limit, through a very populated intersection. Correction, 2 populated intersections in the day. Nothing about it seemed like it was not reckless.
All right. No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Braun, your witness.
Hello, Mr. Williams. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
So when you witnessed Mr. Shaw pass through the intersection southbound at speed, was traffic heavy or light?
I would say it was moderate. There was a handful of cars in the street. I wouldn't call it.
True. Was there any cross traffic when Mr. Shaw crossed the intersection at speed?
To my knowledge, no.
Is there any pedestrian foot traffic on the crosswalks on the east and west crosswalks on the intersection?
Again, to my knowledge, no.
Did Mr. Shaw injure anybody when he passed through the intersection at speed?
No, he did not.
Did he narrowly avoid colliding with the person or vehicle or property?
She's
when
gonna
he,
object
passed
on.
southbound?
Maybe not. Thought she was gonna object on compound.
What do you mean by narrowly avoid? Sorry.
I mean, as he crossed the intersection, was there any point at which he had to swerve out of the way of something, or almost hit a light pole, or cross into opposing lanes of travel, anything like that, Mr. Williams?
Not to my knowledge. We didn't catch up to him until we got to Benny's. He was pretty.
Okay, so you were not directly behind him after he passed the intersection?
Like I said, he was clocked at 113. By the time we had sped off from the intersection and made the turn, he was already about a stoplight away.
Who's that in the
Okay.
back?
So you lost visual contact once he passed you?
No.
Okay, so you didn't have to catch up to him.
We had to catch up to him, but I didn't lose visual contact. He was just farther away. We were
Okay.
able to see the direction he was traveling. And
Did you happen to see if his speed reduced at any point in time after he crossed through the intersection?
no, I did not.
Okay. Now, what is the key difference in the penal code between negligent driving and reckless driving?
Chat, I don't have it up, but I think one is
Negligent driving.
disregard for
driving with
basic rules of the road, essentially.
disregard to the rules of the road. Reckless driving is driving with
Careless.
care or gross disregard to human life.
Carelessness and gross disregard for human
Okay,
life.
but you've said that there was no human life to disregard. He had smooth sailing through the intersection, so I guess I'm trying to figure out, why reckless driving instead of negligent driving. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, in this case, I feel like at the speeds he was traveling, just because he didn't hit anyone doesn't mean hard for human life there.
Actually, unfortunately,
No,
it does
we're not
mean
bringing
that.
in the
Speeding
cosine
alone does
effect.
not constitute reckless driving. There is no stated minimum speed
Objection, is there a
qualify
question?
for reckless driving. Yes. So again,
I have an
have to
objection
ask.
here. Mr. Braun, rebut to her objection.
I'm trying to clarify how the impression got made that there's a minimum speed where reckless
Okay.
driving gets activated here.
All right,
Because
let's
to the
try
penal code,
to
there's not.
phrase that in the matter of a question, okay? And
Okay,
not go
Mr.
on so
Williams.
much of a long... Now, hold on. So I will sustain the objection. Go ahead, Mr. Braun.
Mr. Williams, is there a minimum speed that justifies a reckless driving charge in the penal code for the city?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Is there a minimum speed that justifies or warrants a reckless driving charge in the penal code of the city?
No, there's not.
True.
Fucking Reed.
Okay.
I think that was Reed.
So again, why did you say that because he was going so fast, that is why it was reckless driving?
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
I have nothing further for you, Mr. Williams.
Would you like to redirect Miss West?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Deputy Williams, you may step down at this time. Thank you, sir. Miss West, your next witness.
Yes, I'd like to call up Officer Emily Reinhardt to the stand.
Officer Reinhardt, will you please approach and be sworn in by the bailiff? Detective McCormick.
Officer Reinhardt, could you please lift your left hand for me? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so hope you sin?
I do.
The witness sworn in, Your Honor.
Thank you, Detective McCormick. Officer Reinhardt, I will now remind you that you are under oath. Miss West, you may proceed.
Thank you. First off, how are you doing today, Miss Reinhardt?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Were you involved in a traffic stop on June 10th, 2019 involving Kevin Shaw?
I was.
Okay. What were the events that led up to the traffic
Murphy! Oh, he's probably writing
Me too.
stuff.
What
Well, I was traveling down Vespucci Boulevard and I stopped at a red light in the middle lane, and I witnessed a dark and colored two-door vehicle speed from upper Power to lower and continue down Power Street where he was clocked at 113.
stop? All right. Did you run his plate to verify that it was Mr. Shaw's vehicle?
Mm-hmm.
I did.
I'm going to ask some of the similar questions that Mr. Braun has asked before. What did traffic seem like that day?
It was very moderate. There was at least individuals on both sides.
Okay. Do you know what kind of businesses are in that area?
There's a bank the restaurant, a construction site.
All right. I actually visited this area before. There is in fact a hotel gift shop,
Objection,
several
is there a
restaurants.
question here?
I'm just listing off
Miss-
for the court.
Yeah, you're
West?
answering your client's question.
All right. Withdrawn.
All right, I will sustain it. You may proceed, Miss
Okay.
West. Stick
Thank you.
to asking her questions, okay?
Okay.
Stop it.
When you had him pulled over, did you ask why he was driving like this through the city?
I did.
What was his response?
He was getting vehicle maintenance. Apparently, that there was trouble seeing the back of his vehicle.
When it came time to book Mr. Shaw for the traffic violation, were there any other officers present?
There was Clarence Williams.
All right. At the time, did he agree with the reckless driving charge?
Did.
Why did you choose reckless driving over negligent driving?
Well, you know, he was going 113 from upper power to low. There was cars within all intersections. He could have clipped one. He continued going down the road to another intersection in which there was active traffic.
In your professional opinion, do you think that the charge of reckless driving is appropriate for this situation?
I do.
All right. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Mr. Braun?
Hello, Miss Reinhardt. How are you doing today?
I'm
Let's
great.
change
How are
our
you?
position.
I'm doing fine. So Miss Reinhardt, you were the arresting officer for Mr. Shaw on the day in question. Is that correct?
I was.
Mm-hmm.
What was your rank at the time of this arrest?
A cadet and still.
Okay, so you are a cadet. You are still in training. That is correct.
Yes.
How long have you been a cadet?
Objection, scope.
I'm going to overrule it. She was the arresting officer, so I think her time in service is imperative to this.
Since April 14th.
That's a long time to be a cadet. Wow.
Lot of
Anyway,
training.
Miss Reinhardt,
Wow.
I'm looking at your arrest report. Now, to my knowledge, reckless driving, in terms of being a felony charge, does require a certain amount of risk, a certain amount of wanton disregard for people and property. I'm seeing in this police report that you actually struck a building in the course of effecting this traffic stop. Is that correct?
I did. I was taking a turn and I overtook the turn. The light.
Would you consider that to be reckless driving, Miss Reinhardt?
Unfortunately, I wouldn't say. I'd probably say negligent. Again, during officers' chasings and catching up to people, it does happen, unfortunately.
Okay, so what you're saying is striking a building is negligent and speeding through a clear intersection is reckless.
The reason why I would state that it was negligent was because there was no other individuals around the area. It was a light tap to the building, and my push bar was the thing that got damaged.
Okay, did you call a building inspector to come verify that the building you struck was damaged?
Objection, is her driving being argued in court today, or is it Mr. Shaw's?
Sustained. Mr. Braun,
I'll move on.
thank you.
Now, Miss Reinhardt, have you given a reckless driving charge to anyone besides Mr. Shaw?
Objection, scope, and relevance.
Just trying to
I'm
determine the
gonna-
criteria.
I'm going to sustain it at this time, Mr. Braun.
That would have been a solid
Let's
question.
stick to this one incident, thank you.
All right, Miss Reinhardt. It is clear that my client was speeding. You have the radar evidence to determine that. And he was clocked at 113 miles per hour. That is in the report. So why not charge him with first-degree speeding?
Well, it was determined by all officers on scene, Sergeant Angel, myself, and Clarence Williams, that it would be considered reckless driving. He did go through 2 intersections, continuing with the same speed. There were individuals all throughout the area. He could have easily clipped one and/or hit a pedestrian.
Okay, I'm a bit confused. Mr. Williams said that there were no individuals, so now you're saying that there are. Were there or were there not?
Well, there was plenty of people walking on the crosswalks. He could have easily, drove on a crosswalk on accident. There was cars everywhere. He could have clipped a car.
Okay, define everywhere, Miss Reinhardt. Where exactly?
Well, there was cars on all sides of the traffic in the Power Street crossing Vespucci. There was a good amount of cars in the other intersection as well.
Okay, so there was a green light east and west, and there were cars crossing east and west at the time that Mr. Shaw crossed that intersection.
Do not recall for the traffic flow.
But there were pedestrians crossing the crosswalks east and west?
Do not recall that.
She just said there was.
But you just said that there were, Miss Reinhardt.
I said that there could be.
Which is it?
I didn't hear
There could be is not what you said.
But I did.
I have nothing further for this witness, Your Honor.
Miss West, do you have any questions on redirect?
Not at this time, Your Honor. No.
You may step down, Officer Reinhardt. Your next witness, Miss West.
I don't see Rogers. Oh, there he is. He's right there. He's being called up.
If I'm able to, I would like to call Kevin Shaw to the stand.
Mr. Braun, do you have any objections to that? He is listed as your witness.
I believe that Mr. Shaw is capable of making an informed decision about this. I leave it up to him. I would advise
I'll have
that my
your client
not.
I'll have your client answer to you, and then you can let me know.
Just a quick question. Your Honor?
Yes.
Will Scope come into question if she questions me first?
No, see, what's going to happen here is if you go up there, she's going to ask you questions, but Mr. Braun can only ask you questions that pertain to her asking. So Scope will. Now, Mr. Braun can still call you back as his witness, as he is the one filing this appeal. You understand that?
I do.
And then she will still have the chance to cross on you if Mr. Braun does call you up to the stand.
I just don't think that there's anything to gain by saying yes to this, so...
Gonna pass on this, Your Honor.
That can't hurt to ask. No, instead I will call Senior Deputy Rogers to the stand.
Okay, so you
Chad,
gotta let me finish.
I didn't do
'cause
it.
You're the one that's asking me if he can bring a witness up here. Even if he says no, I can still say, hey, I'd like to hear this. But I am going to respect Mr. Shaw in this moment, and the court will not allow this witness for you.
So, Chad, the reason I didn't, the only reason I didn't was because she still had Rogers to call.
For Senior Deputy Michael
She wanted
Rogers
to get something out of me before Rogers went up there.
All right, Senior Deputy, could you please?
He had to have. There's no reason she would have called me first.
Your Honor, at this time, I
him.
would like to question the need for this witness. He's not listed on the arrest report. Is there a particular reason he's being called?
Well, I added him to witness as a few days ago, and if it was objectable, then so should have done it.
She did add him, Mr. Braun.
Okay.
And there was no objections from you at all in the filing. So I did allow him. All right, Detective McCormick, will you please swear in the witness?
Deputy Rogers, can you please raise your left hand? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you, Mitch.
Yes, I do.
All right, thank
the
you.
witness is sworn in, Your Honor.
Thank you, Detective McCormick. Senior Deputy Rogers, I remind you, you're now under oath. Miss West, you may proceed.
Thank you. Okay. In your opinion, is Officer Reinhardt capable of performing her duties as an officer?
Yes, ma'am, she is.
False.
In your
Agreed.
professional opinion, do you think that the charge of reckless driving is appropriate in this situation?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Why is that?
Due to the fact that it's a heavy intersection inside city limits, traveling at excess speeds, almost double, or correction, almost triple the speed limit, would constitute a reckless driving charge.
Okay. Going by all the information that was presented today, would you have charged Kevin Shaw with reckless driving?
Yes, ma'am, I would.
All right. No further questions from me, Your Honor.
Mr. Braun, any questions? Reed, keep it down, please. Thank you.
Fucking Reed.
Actually, you know, I don't have any questions for Rogers.
All right, you can step down, Senior Deputy.
What? Scratch that.
Is there...
No, I'm...
One second, Your Honor.
Could I just have a moment? Just gonna write a note here.
All right, I'll put this in a 1-minute recess.
You didn't miss anything. You're fine.
Can someone...
You didn't miss anything.
Hi there, Reed.
He went up there and said, "I don't have any questions." And came back and I was writing him a note.
Okay.
What? Why? What?
Reed, if you'd like to ask that lady out for a date, could you take it outside the courtroom, please?
Weapons to a lawyer.
I thought it was okay since we were in recess.
True.
No.
Just, you know, as an expert and all.
I do have a question for you, Mr. Rogers.
All right.
In your expertise, is it standard procedure to hand loaded weapons to people in restricted areas of the PD?
Objection,
law enforcement?
relevance?
Sustained.
I
withdraw my question.
All right, you can
Thank
step
you.
down, Senior Deputy.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Oh, God.
Miss West, do you have any more witnesses to call?
I do not, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Braun, are you prepared to call your witnesses?
I am. I would like to recall Miss Reinhardt.
You may. You did list her as a witness
But
in
not-
this court
not
case
first.
based off of the Freedom of Information Act.
Okay. I'm not going to
All
call
right.
her first, though.
Okay, your first witness, please.
I would like to call Kevin Shaw to the stand.
Mr. Shaw. Detective McCormick, when he gets there, will you please swear him in?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Shaw, have you... yeah, okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you ghost?
Absolutely.
Witness is sworn in, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Detective. And Mr. Shaw, I don't need to remind you that you are now under oath, sir. Mr. Braun, you may
Understood.
proceed with your line of questioning.
Hello, Mr. Shaw. How are you doing today?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Pretty good. So, Mr. Shaw, you were driving southbound in your Audi on the day in question, and you were driving a little fast. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You take ownership of that?
100%.
Do you feel that your speeding may have constituted as negligence? I mean, you are an attorney, you know, you understand the law. Do you think that may have been negligent on your part to do so?
Negligent? Yes, absolutely.
And do you think that it was reckless?
No, not in any way, shape, or form on the basis that there were no individuals in the intersection, either intersection, There were no pedestrians on the crosswalks. And I slowed down before proceeding through the intersection to ensure that no one's life was at risk.
Okay, so to be clear, there was no cross traffic when you navigated this intersection?
That is correct. Not a single vehicle within the intersection as I entered the intersection from either side in either intersection.
Okay, so from what you saw, the east and west lanes were at a red.
That is correct.
Was there east and west foot traffic on the east-west crosswalks on either side of this intersection?
None whatsoever.
Did you strike or nearly strike any persons when you were speeding down Lower Power?
Nope.
Did you cross into opposing lanes of travel?
Absolutely not.
Did you strike any vehicles or commit any kind of fender benders?
Nope. There was no damage to my vehicle.
Did you strike any buildings as you made your way to Benny's?
No. No, I did not.
Were you compliant with law enforcement when they effected the traffic stop?
Absolutely. Upon exiting Benny's, there was a total of, I believe, 2, maybe 3 cruisers waiting for me.
And what was the disposition of the officers who were stopping you? Was it a I guess was it a relaxed traffic stop or was it more close to a felony stop?
The very start of it certainly resembled a felony stop. On the basis that, again, there were so many vehicles and they were essentially just waiting for me to exit Benny's. Afterwards, it became clear that, quite frankly, they weren't going to budge from any reckless driving charge and just wanted me in jail.
Did any of the officers state something to that effect?
Yes. When I was in my cell, Clarence Williams looked at me and said, "I like seeing you behind bars."
Okay.
And
Mr. Shaw.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead.
In addition to that, Cadet Reinhardt. Actually, scratch this. I'm sure you'll. I'm sure you'll ask.
Okay. Did you happen to notice the state of Cadet Reinhardt's vehicle as you were speaking with the police?
Yes. The front of her vehicle did consist of damage after she struck what she told me was a wall and a pole. And at that point in time, I began to call into question the potential of her radar not being accurate on the basis that her vehicle was involved in a collision.
Okay, and what was her response to this this implication?
Her justification was that she crashed after the speed of my vehicle was clocked on her radar. But I had no knowledge of that. I was already in Benny's while she crashed her vehicle, and I had assumed that the vehicle was involved in a collision prior to.
Okay. Now, as a reputable attorney in this city, is speeding enough to constitute reckless driving?
No, I believe speeding would be considered a basic traffic law, which would therefore fall under negligent driving.
Which is an infraction with no jail time.
That is correct.
Now, I'm sure you're quite aware of the penal code, Mr. Shaw, in terms of the difference between negligent driving and reckless driving. Do you consider there was room for interpretation between those two charges.
Well, I do believe that they are very different different things within our penal code. However, there is unfortunately there is room for interpretation on the basis of how it's written, which not a fan of.
And did the officers at any point in time state that there was a minimum speed that you had achieved that constituted as reckless driving?
No, not at all.
Okay. So I guess we'll move along from the initial incident. We've made clear kind of what happened. So once you were placed into custody, were you Mirandized?
I was, yes.
Okay, and you were taken to Mission Row and placed in the holding cell?
That is correct.
Okay, so did you request an attorney, Mr. Shaw?
I did. I certainly did request an attorney, and I was disappointed by what followed.
Were they able to find you an attorney?
Believe it or not, no. In fact, Reinhardt specifically walked upstairs after I requested an attorney. She then called my cell phone and began laughing and mocking at me because there was no other attorney available, and suggested that I represent myself. And also mocking the fact that I was already available at Mission Row during that incident, because I was already in my cell.
Wow. And after Miss Reinhardt called you to ask you to represent yourself, what followed from there?
There was a lot of back and forth between the two of us. Again, Clarence Williams did walk by stating, "I like seeing you behind bars." And when Williams was, I believe, upstairs with Reinhardt, I imagine they discussed my charges. And at that point in time, she came down and essentially said, you have two options. You can either take the deal, you'll walk out of the front door, get the charge on your record, or you will go to jail right now if you refuse to take the deal, and you will have to appeal the charge in court. And that is exactly what I did, despite the fact that I was disappointed that she was the cadet. Mr. Williams was the more senior officer, if you will, and the person who said, "I like seeing you behind bars," was one of the determining factors behind a reckless driving charge on my record.
Just to clarify, in case I missed it, what was the deal that you mentioned?
That I would walk out of the front door with the charge on my record, but not go to prison, so there'd still be a felony on my record. And if I didn't take that deal, my only other option was being sent to prison for the full time.
So that was in exchange for, just to clarify, that was in exchange for a guilty plea, Mr. Shaw?
That is correct.
Okay, so you, for the record, you pleaded not guilty to this charge.
That is correct.
And took the time.
Yep.
Okay. Let me think. Is there in this discussion over these charges or this charge, is there anything else of relevance that occurred pertaining to this matter?
Yes. My weapons were taken off my person, given that I was going to prison, and they were held by Cadet Reinhardt. Afterwards, after going to prison, I was representing a client of mine by the name of Reed Dankleaf, who was a witness here today. And upon representing him, Emily Reinhardt walked into the interrogation rooms in the restricted area of Mission Row PD and gave me my loaded pistol and my taser, which then had to be removed from my person by Owen Svensson.
So, you were given a live and loaded handgun.
Objection. How is this relevant to a traffic charge?
It speaks to the inexperience of the arresting officer, Your Honor.
It has nothing to do with a traffic violation.
It has everything to do with whether that traffic violation was given with all of the knowledge and experience required to make that decision and make it a good one.
3 officers chose the traffic violation, and yet they're not being lambasted on the stand. Only Officer
It's Miss
Reinhardt,
Reinhardt's
which has
name on the arrest
nothing
report.
to do with this.
I am going to go ahead and sustain this, Mr. Braun, at this time. Let's
Fair
stick
enough.
to the arrest of your client here, not past that. Thank you.
Okay. In that case, Mr. Shaw, I have nothing further at this time.
Oh god.
Miss West?
Yes, 1 second, Your Honor. Okay. So you stated to Mr. Braun that you slowed down to go through the intersection. Is this correct?
That is correct.
Do you consider going 113 miles per hour slowing down?
I wasn't doing 113 miles an hour. But if you're asking,
Okay, so when...
if you're asking that question just as a general question, I don't know. Because if you're doing 115 and going down to 113, that's slowing down. But if you're doing 110 going to 113, that's speeding up.
Okay. So you were able to recall whether there were pedestrians and vehicles in the intersection. If you were able to recall this, how did you not see a police cruiser that was stopped at the light?
Well, that is quite simple. Was the officer's vehicle within the intersection or on the crosswalk? The answer to that is no.
Officer Reinhardt, that. Okay. All right. No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Braun?
I have nothing in the scope of that to follow up with.
All right, Mr. Shaw, you may step down at this time, sir. Thank you.
Oh, shit.
You can call your next witness, Mr. Braun.
The Ryan walk.
I would like to request a 5-minute recess at this time.
Yes, please.
I will grant a 5-minute recess at this time. 5 minutes only.
So my reason for recalling Reinhardt was mainly to ask about the Reed stuff. So help me come up with some recall questions that have nothing to do with that. Now that scope is kind of
that kind of shaft.
I mean, I kind of feel like
I think we hit on everything
already.
Yeah, I agree. Coy, if Reinhardt gets called back up, can you think of any in-scope questions that would be relevant without bringing up...
Well, no, we set the scope on the recall.
Yeah, true. Any questions for Reinhardt?
That are in the scope of your reckless driving. Hold on. I took very extensive notes. Give me a second.
What did she say specifically? Trying to think here.
She stated you went 113 miles per hour again. She ran your plate. She said that when she was asking you about why you were there, you were doing vehicle maintenance. Williams was present, and he agreed with the charge that she had decided on.
Williams also, correct me if I'm wrong, but Williams stated there was traffic at first, but then went on to state that there was no cross traffic. I was a little confused there.
He said that he wasn't sure if there was, but he couldn't recall if there was any, but he didn't think there was.
Okay.
Very convenient. And then Reinhardt said that there was, and then there wasn't, and that's when I ended the question.
Yeah,
because that was
they
perfect.
they both conflicted because one was saying yes, one was saying no, and then they were saying they weren't sure.
Yep.
I mean, my gut is telling me to just move straight to closing.
Yeah,
and just knock it out of the park with the California code, and trying to, even if we lose, to push for a better reckless driving charge, because they literally just charge anybody for speeding that they feel like throwing in jail with reckless driving, and it's gotta stop.
Yeah,
you know, you should not be a felon. I should not be a felon, except for the contempt of court stuff.
I'll give you $100,000 if you get contempt of court.
No.
No, don't get it. Williams also stated that he couldn't see the radar from the passenger seat, so how could he trust that her judgment, since she is just a cadet, is sound in the fact that he's going based off of her word when he's the senior officer?
As the arresting officer, I feel like her character should come into question. So it sucks that that line of questioning was shut down. If she specifically stated on the phone to me, "This is my first mistake," referencing giving me a gun. So she would have admitted to making a mistake. But doesn't really matter.
No, she already admitted to making a mistake. She smashed into a building.
Yeah, I know. Okay, how about this? How about you question whether or not Williams was the senior officer in the... Actually, I don't know. That might just be a waste of time. I think it's already been stated.
I just think I think I've already covered everything that I need from Reinhardt, aside from the shit about the gun.
Yeah,
I feel like we
the
just
only
move on to closing.
clarification, Murphy, is whether or not, because I feel like this might come into play, whether or not Williams was the determining factor as to the charge, because he did specifically state he wanted, or he liked me behind bars. And if that was the case and she got that decision from him, maybe. But if you don't think it's worth it, I'm not worried about it, Murphy. Listen, the charge can stay on my record. I really don't care. I made it clear this was a smear campaign.
Yeah, no. My main objective is to get that charge changed and more in accordance with California code, because a felony reckless driving charge. Yeah, felony reckless driving charge is if someone gets hurt, seriously hurt. You're a felon now because you sped and you were a lawyer. You're guilty of being a lawyer.
My criminal boss.
All right,
And
we probably need to get back in
I've been
about 5
attention
minutes.
during that whole case, Koi.
Oh, very easily. I can multitask.
All right, let's roll.
All right, let's get back in there.
Yeah. I know.
We're heading in. Eddie might have fucked up by pulling his car out. How much money do I have on this server? Yeah, this is connected to the live database, I think.
Well, it's okay.
Judd is busy playing Peggle. Fucking Judd. I play Peggle. Just like his Judd character. I fuck tractors.
Your Honor, can I request a sidebar?
Sure. Come on up, Mr. Braun.
What are you doing? Again.
Okay.
All right.
What's going on?
When Mr. Braun questioned Mr. Shaw on the stand, he did admit to going 113 miles per hour. Yet when I questioned him, he said that he was not. And I would like to know which is it, and why he's changing his answers under oath.
Did I say 113? I don't think I did.
I was wondering the same thing, Miss West.
Yes,
but
thank you.
It's not my job to ask that question until we get there. Can we get some clarification here, Mr. Braun, as to why your client changed answers? Did he suddenly remember something? Did he have a brain fart? You know how, sometimes as you're getting older, you sometimes slip up.
Perjury.
Here we go with the perjury again.
Could I participate in this conversation?
Oh, I had a
Mr. Shaw, yes, this does pertain to you. I would like you to come up here and clarify something for the court.
I admitted to speeding. I don't recall ever admitting to going 113 miles an hour.
That is correct. I asked him if he was speeding, and he said yes. I asked if he was being negligent, and he said yes. There was no number. I only mentioned 113 based on the police report when I was crossing Reinhardt.
There you go,
Okay,
Miss West.
so your official answer is that you were not going 113 miles per hour?
That is my official answer.
Noted. Thank you. That's about to get a whole lot more interesting.
Find out.
Okay.
All right.
No field trip?
Wait until they find out I was going 112.
Ron, your next witness.
In light of the sustained objections during past examinations, I'm going to refrain from calling Mr. Dankleaf to the stand and recalling Miss Reinhardt. The defense rests. I am prepared to proceed to closing.
All right. We did have some evidence that was produced in the court case, in the filing. What was? Let me take a look. Evidence A, B, C, D, and E, which was the police report. Mr. Braun, you didn't add any extra evidence after that, except for Mr. Dankleaf. Mr. Dankleaf, I do apologize on behalf of the court if you had to come over here for no reason, actually. So
It's
I
it's
hope
fine.
I hope
need
that
to be
it's all right.
arrested once I leave here anyway. So I mean, it's okay.
Your Honor, I did
okay.
request those phone records. Was there
Yes.
any?
Yes, there was a phone call that was made from Miss Reinhardt to your client during that time frame.
All right, thank you.
Right. I will clarify that as I did earlier. Now, let's see here. There was also Miss West was wanting us to go over to the area. I'm very familiar with that area.
I also have some other things I'd like to point out, specifically the photographs of the vehicle. I feel like it could be better explained in person.
Photograph
and I will,
of the police vehicle?
Yes. I will
Okay.
note that I did get this idea specifically from Judge Artson, who recommends that we do these sort of things more often.
Okay, I have another question for you. I see that Deputy Rogers is in that photograph.
you
Why
guys hear
didn't you
me?
bring up any of that while you were questioning Deputy Rogers?
Because I didn't believe that it was relevant at the time until Mr. Braun and then later Mr. Shaw brought up debating the actual miles per hour he was going through that intersection. I would
Okay.
really like
How
to
much
clarify
time are you going to need to show us the vehicle outside?
that. No more than 10 minutes, if that.
Mr. Braun, are you fine with that?
Could I get some clarification as to why this is relevant?
believe
Because your
the
client is
pictures
now
are
saying that
of
he's not
the
going
radar.
130 miles per hour.
That is
I
correct.
would really like to clarify the fact that he was.
How is looking at a police car going to confirm this?
Well, because you brought up the fact that Reinhardt damaged her vehicle, and therefore, maybe the speedometer wasn't as accurate. I would like to prove that it was.
Are you saying speedometer on
Yeah,
her
sorry,
vehicle
yeah.
wasn't accurate? Or
The
radar?
The radar, excuse me.
Okay, all right.
Your Honor,
Your Honor,
if you
I
give me-
see no
yes.
connection between intentionally damaging a vehicle and a different vehicle being differently damaged at another point in time.
I will actually
producing
make this
identical
point
results.
abundantly clear.
I want to know, is this her vehicle that's in that photograph?
No, it is not. It is the same make and model, and I will show that damage to the grille does not, in fact, damage the radars. That's what the point that I am trying to make here. I would like to explain to the courts how those radars actually function with my expert witness.
Okay. As long as you're not playing
the,
Pagel over there and you're actually listening.
If there was something that hit the front of that car and caused, the meter to mess up, the scanner to mess up in any way, I think it'd be impossible to recreate that unless you can nail the physics completely perfect on how it was damaged.
I didn't even hear.
No,
I
my
am in
point
complete
that I
agreement.
am
I
trying
would
to
prefer that you would have had a
Picture of her vehicle in the damaged state that it was in at the time.
Okay. The radar isn't in the grille. It is actually inside the vehicle and on the exterior of the car on the trunk.
Yes,
The point that I'm trying to make is the fact that, yes, the grille was damaged. It is a ram bar designed to absorb physical shock and damage from, ramming
Okay.
vehicles during pursuits.
Okay,
Um,
again, we are here for reckless driving, and you are,
Yes,
again,
but
going
the
with
defense,
the radar, okay?
The defense is trying to say that he's not going that speed. I'm trying to prove that despite the slight damage when she hit the corner of the building, the fact that the radars would still be functional, and the fact that
this is
the
for 1
radar
mile an hour.
was taken before that even occurred. so it wouldn't have changed the
Mr. Braun,
results.
are
Despite
you in
Mr.
fact
Shaw
here to
trying
argue
it.
that the radar was damaged and gave a false reading?
It is not the crux of my case. However, it is a possibility. My client
And that's what I would
maintains
like
that
to
he
address.
was
Okay.
not looking at
All
his
right.
speedometer when he crossed that intersection.
If it is in fact a possibility, I will allow 10 minutes outside with that police cruiser. The only thing that I want going forward, okay, if possible, and I know this is sometimes not possible, maybe the officer can take a photograph of their own vehicle at the time and the state of their vehicle so we have a better picture instead of a recreated one. Does that make sense?
I fully agree with that.
Right. And I'm not sitting here ordering an officer to do that from going forward. But if I know that someone's going to appeal a charge, such as Mr. Shaw, right? And I know for a fact, or in the back of my mind, that, hey, this guy might appeal something here, I better get some evidence. I would definitely, going forward, have a picture of my vehicle. That's just me. I'm throwing some people a bone here today in the courtroom, okay? All right, so we can step outside. We'll take a look at the cruiser. We'll come back in here, and then we'll move on to closing. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yep.
Thank you.
Let's talk.
Lou, what's happening?
This should be good. Chat, I think I'm gonna end up just admitting to 112 miles an hour.
Jesus, Reed.
Oh god.
What?
Is it over? Is it over? It's over.
Murphy, I want clarification on something. I know I haven't admitted to doing 112, but that's what I'm telling you. That's what the maximum my speedometer read at the time. Guaranteed, no questions asked. I didn't do
You weren't
113.
looking at your speedometer. You weren't looking at your speedometer.
But if that's the case, how can I
How are
argue
you
I
looking
wasn't
at your
doing
speedometer
113?
when you should be looking at the road.
It doesn't fucking matter what speed you were going. That's not the crux of the case. The crux of the case is that speeding alone does not constitute reckless driving. Speeding is speeding. Reckless driving
I feel like
involves
they're aiming
other
for perjury
considerations.
now, though. And I feel like clarifying
well,
that I wasn't
they can
doing
suck a dick.
113, I was doing 112. Wait, I never
If
admitted
push
to
comes
not
to
looking
shove-
at the
if
speed.
push-
You said that, not me.
If push comes to shove, admit to doing 112. Who cares? But
Okay.
if not, then you weren't looking at the speedometer. You were being negligent. That's the key thing. You were.
Coy, did I ever say that I wasn't looking at my speedometer, or that I didn't recall? You know, at all?
No.
No, you said that
No.
you weren't going 113, which I
Yeah,
would
that's
not have
all you
advised.
said was
I said
you
I was
said I was
speeding,
not going 113.
and that I wasn't
Said you
going
were speeding.
113. Both of those things
that's all
open
you
up the
said.
possibility for 112, which is exactly what happened.
I need to let my boyfriend know I'm dumping him.
Clarification goes a long way. You did slow down when you passed the intersection, so maybe at the time when you looked at your speedometer, you were not going 113. So it's not perjury. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but you know damn well that's what they're trying to set up right now, and she said this is gonna get a lot more interesting.
Well,
Listen,
like
if
I
I
said,
have
they
to
can
admit
suck a
to
dick.
if I have
Their
to
little
admit
field
to
trips and
112,
bullshit
I will.
Is wasting a lot of time right now.
That's
So
margin
I'd rather
of
just
error.
stick to the heart of the matter, which is the fact that whatever speed you were going, speeding alone is not reckless driving. There needs to be another element to the incident that calls for that charge, because it is a felony and a custodial sentence. And there was no victim, therefore, how is it a felony?
True. I understand, but I do want to let you know that they will be pushing for a perjury charge.
Well, they can go ahead and try.
And I can
Yeah, you
avoid that.
personally said nothing.
Okay. Murphy, don't say that I didn't look at my speedometer at all. So I know you said that, but don't say it. I didn't say it. But they might be going based
So-
off of what you said, but that shouldn't matter.
Well,
I know that they're out there
when
trying
you did
to
look
show
at
the
your
radar.
speedometer. Hang on. Say that when you did look at your speedometer, it was when you were past the intersection. You weren't going 113. Easy, whatever. It's easy enough.
But I think what they'll play into is if you weren't looking at your speedometer, how do you know you weren't doing 113? I did bring up other speeds.
Well, you don't. You don't know.
But not knowing will make it so that the radar will, prove without a shadow
But
of
it's
a doubt.
not perjury. Perjury is
True.
knowingly lying. You're not knowingly lying. You're just.
But
when
if
you
I
looked
said
at
I
the
wasn't doing
Oh
speedometer,
one
shit!
thing-
I gotta wash
113.
my balls.
Weird
Okay.
sound. Yeah, sorry.
I think we need to go out there and observe this stupid fucking time-wasting thing
Yeah,
that
let's
they're
go.
doing, or we're gonna get yelled
I
at.
agree. I agree.
Sorry. I apologize. What's going on here?
I know what it's like to be arrested now, Shaw. I feel pain.
Oh, well,
What was the food like?
the food? Oh, I don't know.
I don't feel like it would be very good.
Yeah,
No, it's grade F mystery meat.
I
Sloppy Joe.
I had people bring me food while I was there.
Oh,
Oh,
has
did you
it
sample
changed
any
a bit,
Coney
huh?
Clarkson?
No.
Jesus.
Ew,
Alright, so-
wow, Reed. Alright. Wow. That's too far. That's too far.
Oh, that was funny though.
What is...
I mean, if you want too
Oh, is
far,
that
Shaw, read
Coops
your text
Lambo?
message.
Oh my god, it's cute.
Is this
Keeping proud of Coops Lambo.
Coops Lambo?
It was Coops Lambo.
What?
Okay.
Oh
So-
my god.
But the other issue, though, is that how can we recreate the damage to the vehicle? You know?
Y'all want to hit the side of the building?
No.
No, that would be reckless
I'll
driving.
drive. But do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, so what we're
I
gonna
mean,
do
we
is
can't, but
I
Sir.
am gonna get in this Lamborghini. You're gonna set that car up right over there where you can clock me going by. I'm gonna set a certain speed on it, and when we come back, I'm gonna ask you what speed you clocked me at.
Oh.
And I'll know exactly how fast I was going.
Hold on. Yeah, but if
Yes,
you're going
sir.
at a constant speed the entire time,
Oh no,
wouldn't that-
Rogers, get out of the fuck.
I wasn't at a
never mind.
constant
I just
speed.
Are you a
Right,
radar
but I just
expert,
wanna-
Mr. Shaw?
No,
Right.
I'm not.
We are just here
Are you an
to
engineer?
see.
it's for
We're just
science.
gonna- Yes, we're gonna do this for science right now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, that works for me.
All right, Mr. Braun, are you okay with that? Where's Mr. Braun?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm
thank you.
If you'd like, Mr.
Chad, I
LeBar,
hope
I can
it's
actually stay
one-off.
right here
I hope it is one
and
off.
That's
clock your
fine.
speed as you go past.
Okay.
Our vehicles are able to pick up, at least from the rear,
Okay.
at an angle
Okay.
of vehicles.
Now what I'm gonna do is I'm
passing.
gonna set the cruise control when I go by, or before I come by. I'm not gonna go too crazy here. I'm gonna try to match the speed that he was at, even though his speed fluctuated. Okay.
Hypothalamus.
Yes, sir.
What
the
Can
fuck?
you use an actual word? God damn it.
You should have.
That's an actual
You
word.
should have studied
Did he mean
medicine,
hypothetically?
Mr.
What?
Mr.
I
Shaw.
should have studied what?
Oh
Really?
shit!
Hey, there was a
Medicine.
spider on your chin.
Medicine?
I'm glad I got
No.
that for you.
I'll
there
pass
Hey,
on
how you
that.
feeling?
Uh-huh.
You
Yeah,
just
there
wanted to
was.
hit
Should have been
me.
a doctor. You
No, I
keep
see.
talking about the hypothalamus.
Hey, Alan, how you doing
Nah.
there, buddy?
Ain't about
Did
that
you,
life.
Who the hell are you
McCormick,
calling Alan?
Did you
Oh, sorry. You
hear
look a lot like
Mr.
Alan.
Oh my God, are you
Shaw's
fucking
new,
kidding me?
new answering machine?
Oh my god. So good.
Wait,
I
what
also,
answering
kind-
machine? I haven't heard this yet.
Alright.
Oh, trust me, you will.
It's a mood killer.
Oh, I.
You don't want to
Oh,
listen
is
to
it?
it. Yeah.
All right. Did you happen to
Alright,
catch
Your
that?
Honor.
Is somebody gonna
It's
clock
something
you?
Yes, I
childish.
did. Would you like the exact
No,
number
it's
that
his
was
fucking
clocked at,
song.
including your license plate, sir?
Oh.
Yes,
Oh.
including the license plate.
The
Okay.
speed that the vehicle with plate Y3895QD9, which is registered to one Dennis Labar, who is currently employed as a judge. The speed was clocked at 116 miles an hour.
Okay. All right.
That's pretty reckless.
All right. I will go park my vehicle at this time.
Time to arrest Dennis.
Yep, Dennis is a
God, you're
felon.
I
Your
hope
fucking
it's
case,
one
I'm saying
off.
that loud.
I hope it's one off,
Oh,
chat.
he's gonna actually arrest Dennis.
Thank God.
I mean, they arrested Kevin, so why not Dennis?
Eddie, put him under
Hey, Reed,
He's got a point. He's got a point.
Get the point.
What's the point?
Reed was
Okay.
fucking
So
Let's
I
go.
said,
I will give you the exact speed, and Judge Coyote can verify it was 117 was my speed that I was locked in at.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Wow.
117,
And what'd you get clocked at?
116.
Wow.
the point off. It's not
Yeah,
bad.
well. It's interesting.
Now, now the next question is, where do you think you locked onto me? Was it from the front radar or the rear facing, and was I starting to brake? That's the other
I
question.
can tell you I can tell you that it was the rear-facing radar, and it would have been approximately... The angle of the radar is approximately out like this, so it would have been approximately here when you passed me, and I assumed you'd start to brake approximately here to safely come to a complete stop before the intersection.
I braked once I went past full. Okay. All right. Any other things you want to bring up out here, Miss West or Mr. Braun?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Braun?
I'm good.
Okay. We can go back in. Thank you for bringing the vehicle over here.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you,
problem.
Rogers.
Oh my god, it's
No
like
problem.
school. We're all going back in for
Let's go,
recess. This is great.
Kermit, you need to stop.
You saw 112. No, it doesn't prove
Hey,
their
Kermit,
point.
can I talk
If
to you
they're
for a second?
claiming I was doing
No, I'm
113
really
and they
scared
asked
now.
me
I don't
if
wanna
I
talk
was
to
doing
anybody.
113,
Now, just come
the
over
answer
here,
is
Kermit.
no, I was doing 112.
Jesus.
What could go wrong?
Oh, chat, can we at least all admit that we're all having a blast here? No one here is upset. It's all for good fun. I made it clear. I really don't care the outcome of this, so it doesn't bother me. I'm just happy that theirs was one off. I'm just very happy theirs is one off.
I love having my badge on me.
Same. Dagda, thank you for the 500 biddies. Shouldn't you say you weren't going 90 degrees? So, no, we're not arguing the cosine effect.
I think Reed already left. All right.
I know, Legs, but when it comes to their question, if they ask if I was doing 113 and I was doing 112, the answer to that is no.
Look, you're addicted to Peggle, okay? You gotta stop. We gotta get you something else to do. Something law-related. In my courtroom, you will. You're allowed to play. Carry on. All right, are both sides prepared to give their closing?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Now, I have a question, and it's based off the evidence that you submitted, Ms. West.
Yes.
Give me one moment to find the proper filing of the evidence.
Grub, how are you, man?
I need clarification on what a 1074 dispatch call is.
That would have been, I think it wasn't a dispatch call. Officer Reinhardt later explained it to me. That was her flagging his plate. It was not a dispatch call. It was just him flagging the plate, or her flagging the plate, excuse me, to identify who it belonged to.
Okay, so that's not a call coming in from somebody at all.
No.
That's just that's actually her going into the MDT system on her dashboard, her console there, and flagging his plate.
Yes, that's just
Okay.
proving that that was the vehicle that belongs to Kevin Shaw that was
Ownership?
going through the intersection.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I just need to make sure because I saw that and I wanted to make
Yeah,
sure that was clarified.
I thought
here
it was
for
a dispatch call at the time, but I later got clarification
Because
on
isn't
it.
a 1074 an injured person or something like that?
74
Or am I wrong?
1047.
47.
1047. Got it. Okay, thank you very much. All right. If both sides are prepared to give their closing, you may proceed at this time, Miss West.
1 second. Okay. All right. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the court, what we have witnessed today was nothing more than a sad distraction for Mr. Braun. He claims that Officer
Thank you,
Reinhardt,
Grub.
despite multiple officers agreeing with the reckless driving charge, did it so out of spite and because she was making fun of the defendant. He claims Officer Reinhardt harassed his client when in fact it was the other way around. Mr. Shaw drove 113 miles per hour through several intersections containing multiple businesses where people are regularly seen walking around, where there is a hotel with an abundance of tourists and several restaurants and novelty shops in the area, It's a busy, and bustling area full of local businesses, including Premium Deluxe Motorsport, as well as containing a construction site for a new high-rise in which there is construction equipment constantly coming and going with hundreds of construction workers at all hours of the day. Reckless driving states that to be guilty, an individual must be driving with a wanton disregard for safety of persons or property. A person acts with wanton disregard for safety when he or she is aware that his or her actions present a substantial and unjustifiable risk of harm, and he intentionally ignores those risks. The person does not, however, have to intend to cause any damage. Mr. Shaw did both of these things. He cannot claim that he was checking both ways before plowing through an intersection at, again, 113 miles per hour, because if he did check both ways, he'd have noticed the police cruiser. He cannot claim that the radar is malfunctioning because the radar on the trunk and inside of the vehicle were not damaged in any way, shape, or form. And he cannot claim that Officer Reinhardt gave him a reckless driving charge out of spite because of the incident involving Reed Dinkley was never expounded upon and was handled, in fact, by PD command hours later. The defense's attempt to distract from the real crime of reckless driving is pathetic, deceitful, and just plain depressing, and I implore the courts to see through these attempts. Mr. Shaw is lucky that we are appealing a traffic violation today and not on trial for manslaughter or murder of some innocent tourist from Vice City.
True.
Mr. Braun?
I was going to say it's a felony, not traffic infraction.
Your Honors, ladies and gentlemen of the court, Miss West paints a really beautiful picture of what happened on the day in question. However, she was not there. Her words do not add any weight to the facts that have been seen before this court today. We are here to focus on the evidence and testimony that was brought before the court, and it was on Miss West to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Shaw drove his vehicle and that he intentionally drove with disregard for the safety of persons and property. Now, based on the testimony, we have an officer, Mr. Williams, who does not recall whether or not there were people or vehicles creating through traffic when Mr. Shaw made his way through that intersection. And then we have Miss Reinhardt, who contradicted herself by saying that there was and that there wasn't pedestrian traffic, and that there was and that there wasn't vehicle traffic. This does not prove anything beyond a reasonable doubt as far as my client's intention to drive disregarding the safety of persons or property. There has not been proven any persons or property that were in the path of Mr. Shaw. Now, as I said in my opening, speeding in and of itself is not enough to constitute reckless driving. The fact that Mr. Shaw was speeding by itself does not establish that he drove with disregard for others' safety. It's only one factor that must be considered here out of all of the surrounding circumstances.
Fucking love this
surrounding
chat.
Circumstances which have not been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. If this is the only evidence the prosecution has, then we must successfully appeal and remove these charges, because Mr. Shaw has not been proven guilty of reckless driving, and I would further add that reckless driving is in need of some serious reconsideration and clarification going forward. Now, as I mentioned, in the rest of the greater California, the California Code, VC 23103, states that reckless driving without any injury is actually a misdemeanor offense. Mr. Shaw is charged with a felony. In order for reckless driving to be deemed a felony, someone must be seriously injured.
Appreciate it.
It is a wobbler offense. It can either be a misdemeanor or a felony. For the purposes of simplicity in this city, we have legislated a negligent driving infraction to distinguish between the two kinds of reckless driving to make things simpler and easier for everybody. However, all that leads to is overzealous law enforcement deciding that reckless driving is the case in simple matters of speeding in order to effect the arrest and custodial sentence of individuals such as Mr. Shaw. There was no victim here. There was no serious crime against a person committed. there is no material evidence in the form of injury or damages that justify a charge of disregard of persons
Yes, Alder,
or
I
property
do.
against Mr. Shaw. Again, I must say, Mr. Shaw could have been charged with first-degree speeding, potentially disregarding a traffic control device. I'm not sure if the light was red or green. That never came up. But the point is, it could have been a simple ticket. It could have gone further to negligent driving, a more serious infraction. But instead, the officers on scene that day and Miss Reinhardt decided that they wanted to throw Mr. Shaw in jail. Though there is no evidence
I'm not
that
signed in.
he nearly hit someone or that
I'm
he
getting
struck
10.
anything. And though Miss Reinhardt, in fact, was the one in this situation who destroyed some property, Mr. Shaw nonetheless spent some time in prison. And I do believe with the facts and evidence under consideration today, the people have not proven Mr. Shaw guilty of reckless driving, and that charge must be removed. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. Thank you, Ms. West. Okay, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and put this court in recess. Please act accordingly while I am in the back deliberating. And once I've reached a verdict, I will come back out. This court is now in recess. All right, I'm going to go ahead.
No read. No
We're
read.
back into session at this time. Based on the evidence that was provided here in the courtroom today,
Dun dun dun, chat.
I am going to find that Mr. Shaw was not guilty
Hell yeah.
of reckless driving.
We did it,
I am,
chat.
however,
We're getting
gonna
negligent.
impose the in the penal code we have negligent driving, Mr. Shaw, and it's the belief of this court that's exactly what you did. So you will be, that felony will be removed from your record, sir, and instead you will be found guilty of negligent driving in this courtroom. Do you understand that, Mr. Shaw?
I understand,
Now,
Your Honor.
there is a fine that does come with that, Mr. Shaw, so I will definitely compensate you the difference of reckless driving towards negligent driving. Now, Mr. Braun did bring up some very key points here. The judges and the city, we need to definitely look at the reckless driving charge. A fine-tooth comb. I am aware of the state of California's.
Uggle, thank you so much.
I'll wait for.
Shibis, thank you
Is
so
Miss
much
West?
for the prime.
Are you here?
Yeah,
It's me,
yeah,
hello,
I'm good.
thank
I
you for
just
the
missed like 30
Okay.
seconds. Sorry.
Okay, so did you hear the first part where I found that Shaw won his appeal, but he
Yes.
will instead be stuck with a negligent driving charge? Do you understand that?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Now, what I was going on to was the judges. We're going to sit down and we're going to visit reckless driving. We're going to look it over. I'm going to speak to a few officers as well as attorneys. And that's the thing with this city. Everybody needs to understand we need to adapt as we go forward. We
I
learn
agree.
from here in the courtroom with rulings, different case laws, different state of California laws, which our penal code is based off of for the time being. That's pretty much all I have at this time. Mr. Shaw, you could come up. We'll fix the charge for you. I'll have to have an officer do that. And then we will also get you the compensation of the difference of the money. And this court is now dismissed.
Understood.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You got
All
to
right,
over there.
I
I'm
will
playing
say
Peggle.
this. Please, everybody, listen. When you're done here, if it's court-related, you have a few moments, okay? If not, it's time for everybody to go back to your room, go
I'm
back
wondering
to sleep,
who that
okay?
is
Does
right
everyone
there.
understand that?
Behind the plant on the right
Understood,
side.
Your Honor.
Absolutely.
Because the engineers are going to shut the power down here in the courthouse.
West,
Understood.
if you have a moment.
Your Honor,
Do
is it
weapon
okay if I stop by
licenses-
the hospital real quick? I
Time
left
to go
out
get
That's
here.
out of
fine.
the room.
Listen, go to the hospital, but make it quick.
All right, thank you.
All right,
Yeah,
give me
let's
just a
go outside.
moment.
I am very excited for that. It really needs it. So this is.
I read.
You read your phone yet, Shaw?
I'm afraid.
Good, dude. It happened.
Yeah, good luck, Reed. Have fun in
Thank
jail.
you.